I guess I was muted. So technical difficulties. So we'll start that over. It's September 26th, and thank you for tuning in to the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we're broadcasting every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support throughout the show. We invite you to share your comments and questions at any time. Your engagement fuels our discussion and helps us navigate the world of transportation and logistics together. It's been a little quiet on social media over the last week, or I've been a little quiet on social media over the last week. Just so happens that not everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that especially applies to COVID. I'm feeling a lot better and nearly back to 100% now, but I was down and out for a good minute, and it took me out of the McLeod user conference. I did get to enjoy Trimble, but thanks to Robert Bain, who went to McLeod in my place. I really appreciate that. And it actually just resulted in that mute. I needed to clear my nose before the podcast started. So I did want to chat this week about the looming International Longshores Association strike, but due to being sick, I didn't really have a chance to chat about it earlier this week. So stay tuned for some opinions on this in the next day or two. I don't really want to occupy a great deal of time from this panel, so I'll come out with something most likely tomorrow about that, but I'm pretty opinionated, or I have a pretty strong opinion about it, and want to put something out soon. Last week, we aired a wonderful episode, thank you, Jeremy Thone, dedicated to Trucker Appreciation Week. If you haven't watched it, take a look. It's a compilation of previously recorded content mixed in with some new content recorded by guests that came by our booth at Trimble Insight. I want everyone to remember Trucker Appreciation Week. We all appreciate truckers every day. I've said this over and over again. The difference is this particular week, many people in the industry come together to push industry messaging to the masses, to the people. I present this content every week, but I don't always present the content in the manner that the general public will always want to watch. I present it to you, those who are involved in transportation logistics. There's a difference. So not only do we celebrate our drivers during Trucker Appreciation Week, we make sure that the nation knows we're doing it as well. And I think that's the differentiator between every week and Trucker Appreciation Week. It's well established that times are tough for trucking companies. I've been in the industry for 3 decades, and I don't recall a time that we've struggled as an industry this much. We're fighting economic, environmental, regulatory, and legal battles that we never could have imagined 2 and 3 decades ago. Costs have increased exponentially while revenue has not, requiring carriers and operators to become far more efficient than ever before. Every penny is important. Every process needs to be clean. Every decision needs to be thought out. It's my opinion that you need to operate extremely well prior to the market turning to the positive, so you're able to maximize your capitalization of the positive market conditions. My leading indicator has always been interest rates, and the Fed just cut those 0.5% with the intent of cutting them over a time 2% or slightly more. This doesn't immediately move the bar, but in my opinion, it begins the move. Housing, equipment, consumer spending, all may move with more spending. Above this all, we still have too many trucks on the road, and that is a problem that needs to be solved as well, regardless of what the economy is going to do. This week, we have 3 great guests on the show to chat about what it takes to succeed in trucking as a carrier in today's market conditions. I'm excited to introduce Nik Hovde, General Manager of Shefland Trucking, Mike McDonough, General Manager of McDonough Trucking, and Tim Chrulski, COO of Garner. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nate.
For having us, Nate.
Yeah, appreciate you all coming on. Let's have you all start out with a brief, since there's 3, a brief introduction of yourself. Let's start with the upper right. So, Nik, why don't you start out first?
I'm Nik Hovde, General Manager at Shefland Trucking out here in Baldwin, Wisconsin. We're about a 30 operation, primarily dry vans right now at the moment. Do a little bit of white glove service in that world, and we've been on a growth mission since basically the beginning of COVID here, and we're continuing on that. And this marketplace is an interesting one to grow in, so I'd like to be here and talk about that a little more with you guys today.
Excellent. Appreciate you being on. Tim, let's go with you next.
Yeah, I'm Tim Chrulski with Garner Trucking. Been with the organization for about 27 years. Happy to say I started as a driver, and have had a good opportunity to kind of see the different terrains within the economy over the years, and certainly Nate, as you pointed out, we're in yet another odd situation once again.
Odd situation. So, yeah, I don't think they stopped, Tim. I think we're always in an odd situation. So, Mike, can you run next here?
Yeah, I'm Mike McDonough. I'm newly the COO of McDonough Truck Line, officially named last week, actually.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, so we're a generational trucking company. This September is our 63rd year in business. I am 3rd generation of the family working, and we've kind of seen the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads over these 63 years. To echo the sentiment shared by you, Nate, and Tim and Nik, man, what weird times. just weird times right now. I think it's fun to say that being in trucking for 63 years, we can label ourselves survivors. And it'll be fun to just talk and share some of these stories today with you, Nate.
No, I appreciate that. I'm excited for this discussion. I don't think an hour is long enough. But that's what we're going to get, because I'm sure we'll have everybody fall off as far as listeners here. So we're going to start off with our first question for you, and we'll just kind of pass it around. And I'll start with Nik again, but we won't always go in this order. But how has this trucking recession impacted your overall business operations?
For me, as I stated earlier, we started out in growth mode here just the last few years under new ownership and stuff and whatnot. It stunted our growth a little bit outside of the spot market being down, the checks maybe not rolling in quite the way we'd like them to at sometimes. I mean, we could talk about money and politics all day. For me, we were on a mission, and it stunts your growth a little bit. And anybody that's done this for a few years now understands that we got to ride this roller coaster. We're retooling for the future constantly, as you stated in the intro here, Nate. And that's been the hardest part for us, is to figure out, where do we retool, where do we invest, and what's the best way forward. And that answer is different in every organization, unfortunately.
So, Tim, how would you answer that question? How has the trucking recession impacted your overall business operations?
Well, I think the day-to-day operations is one thing, and then you've got kind of the bigger picture um, to talk about as well. The day-to-day, obviously, we're in a market where things are a bit slower. We've been very fortunate to have a pretty full fleet and keep our drivers busy, which is great. But obviously, the freight volumes are down, as all of us are seeing. From a bigger picture standpoint, I think this is a good opportunity to kind of stretch what you do a little bit, figure out what for your organization works well. I know that we've taken a good hard look and have begun getting into some different areas, be it 3PL or into the warehouse space a little bit, just to supplement and diversify our organization a bit more as well.
Great. And Mike?
I would say for us, it's kind of reared a couple of things. As they've indicated, day-to-day chasing freight is harder than it's ever been. Our drivers, we're a little bit unique. Our drivers are more hourly based. So, we kind of give them the promise of, hey, we're going to give you some work today. And we might set up a load and that load might fall apart. And so sometimes we see like driver utilization just down from the standpoint of they're sitting and waiting while we hunt and peck for the next load to fill things in. We're chasing cash. We don't factor. We're chasing cash probably more than we've ever done in 60 years. And it's strange because it's the money's good, but I think everyone's just hanging on to their money. So you're finding excuses you've never ever heard before, like, oh, we accidentally put you on ACH and that will take 3 days or 3 weeks for you to get a check. And so it's just things like that are odd. We've never heard things like this before. I think in the big picture, we've been really fortunate to, like Tim says, we have a dedicated fleet. Our drivers are kind of on their dedicated accounts. The fill-in work is where we're struggling. But two things for us have really surfaced. I think as time gets slower, as work gets harder, as the economy is tougher, some of our older drivers are just looking at work and going, maybe I just don't want to do this anymore. And what we're seeing, and we've been talking about this in trucking for a very long time, is the driver supply. And most of the lake of drivers, we'll say, is guys that are older. And we're not seeing a good entrance of young drivers. So, we're kind of staring down the barrel as these older guys are like, hey, I think I might want to be done if it's going to be this hard. We're worried that we might see a lack of replacement for these older guys.
I know that's a topic that Tim and I have dove into, not only on a previous podcast, but in person, in depth on a couple occasions. So, and I'm sure we could go deep down that one, but I'm not going to go too deep down that one because I think that's another subject on the
Take the bait, Nate. Just take the bait.
Fair enough. If we run out of topics, but it is a valid point. It is a valid point, but I don't know if that's potentially recession oriented. But so what the next question, kind of in succession here, would be then, based on the various impacts to operations, what steps are you taking to maintain your profitability or maintain survivability during this downturn? And I think, as I said in my opening statement, that there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And I've been the first one to say for the last few years, I haven't really been seeing a whole lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and that, the Fed has largely been holding this one for a while. So maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still a lot of trucks out there. And so regardless of what happens with the economy, if we still have too many trucks on the road, that's one thing. So we could have a great economy, but if we have, 30%, 20% too many trucks on the road, that's still going to impact rates. So what are you doing to maintain profitability or survivability during this time? And I'll start that question out with Tim this time, if I can.
Well, I think that, again, whether you're in good times or bad times, there's some fundamentals of whoever or whatever your organization is about that you simply have to continue with. I know for us, we're a fleet of about 85 dry vans, been in business since 1960. And for us, it's very much about the customer relationships that we have, taking care of that customer, regardless whether times are good or times are bad. I think that lends itself to a healthy relationship, especially when the economy's in a bit of a downturn. You can really kind of continue down the same path with the same customer, same valued customer base. I think for any carrier, if you don't know your own costs, that's a major mistake. You really need to know and understand what it costs to operate your piece of equipment, and especially when you're in, frankly, a toxic rate environment right now. You really got to know what you can and can't do. Michael kind of hit on it a little bit. Sometimes you've got to make the decision that we're going to have to wait a little bit and see about what that next load might be, what that next lane we're going to use to cover that driver to get them back on track or get her back on track. And I think those things are extremely important when you're dealing with a market like this one. You really don't want to play the market rate game right now.
I can agree with that. Spot market. Well, I don't know if you ever, my opinion on that is I'm not sure you ever want to play it. But so Mike, I'm going to flip that one to you. What steps are you taking to maintain profitability or survivability during the downturn?
I'll just share. Tim touched on a big one. You really need to know what it costs to operate your business and what those things are. And we were fortunate enough, we did some restructuring with our ownership over the last couple years. What that allowed us to do was to get a valuation on our business. And what the valuation on our business did was it really brought to light some areas that we wouldn't have otherwise thought we were behind it. And that business valuation really helped us look at our measurements in our own business and just say, these are the measurements that truly matter. So with that, we kind of retooled our where and how we measure our business. And today, moving forward, we kind of utilize that basis, that line, as we need to get X, Y, and Z out of our performance. We need to be measuring A, B, and C in our burn rate or our consumption. And that's really helped us move our profitability forward, even in this downtime. I know that this is geared towards small carriers. I'm sure that Nik and Tim, starting as a driver, I'm sure you wore every hat in the business. I think that small carriers specifically, they get too consumed in the job that they do to look at what's truly going on. They don't necessarily have the time to manage their business because they're so hyper-focused on the business itself, the relationships itself. I think relationship is the most important, but part of measuring a good relationship is being there for your clients. And if you're not measuring your own business, there's no way you're going to be there for your client if you're not measuring your business correctly.
Nick, what's your answer to this one?
Well, I'm going to kind of tie it back in with everybody here to recap here. Yeah, obviously you got to know your numbers. That's the biggest one. Like Mike said, you find out a lot of truths about your company under some of these rocks and those numbers that you didn't think were accurate. We're fortunate enough here at Shefland in our ownership suite that comes with the CPA and a whole accounting arm, and they are very, very good with the numbers and that side. I've had my eyes opened up to KPIs that I never thought I'd run before, and just getting in that cadence of watching your company. Mike had a great point too, and Tim knows this as well. We've all worn different hats growing up in this industry. At my company, we're no different. We're only a 30 truck fleet. I've got to do a lot of different jobs here, and it's easy to lose sight of the metrics and those things. And trying to retool your company. I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but trying to wrap all that up, my thoughts there. So you got to know your costs. Relationships matter, and bring it all home with that at the end of the day, and focus on your core values during these times. For us, it's safety and service. That's all we got at the end of the day. Good times or bad, let's focus on that and make it the best.
So largely you guys all answered kind of the same way for the most part in both the first two questions. And I'm not really that surprised to hear that. So you actually are all three in similar spaces, but not. And I didn't have you describe your businesses on purpose in the beginning. But you are somewhat the same, but not. And I'll have you describe yourself in a little while, probably after we come back from break. The next question I have for you is, have you invested or divested? And you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but have you invested or divested in any technology that has benefited your organization throughout this freight recession? So once again, have you invested or divested in any technology during this recession that has benefited your organization? I'm going to start this one off with Mike.
Yes. I think the way to answer that is, of course, trucking companies we're mandated into technology. We're mandated into using things that we probably wouldn't otherwise be using had the mandate not been there. That forces our hand at looking at technology, looking at process surrounding those things, and saying, how do we do this better? We have a TMS at our company. We're using it less and less than we ever have, and we're to the point where we're considering moving that out. That sounds strange to say. I think telematics and the way they track trips now have really, gathered a lot of data points, a lot of entities out there where if you're primarily using a TMS for billing and invoicing, you might need to look at costs and say, is that worth it to you? Right. And so that's kind of where we're at as a company. And that's just the thing that's internal to us. I do think that we've largely leveraged Microsoft more than we ever have, included in Business Suite. Some of the Office 365 things are some pretty cool tools, and some pretty cool tools surrounding automation that has allowed us to be, in one sense, cutting edge for a company that, our size. And in another sense, it's not big tech, it's not leading edge, but it's really relevant tech. The ability to push notification on delivery, typically in the past that was reserved for companies with TMSs and large scale TMSs and integrations. Right now, we're able to do that just from our own internal Microsoft 365 out to our client base on every load.
Nik, that question for you, just to restate it again, have you invested or divested in any technology that has benefited your organization during the freight recession?
Absolutely. As I stated before, we're on a growth mission here. When I got to Shefland, we needed a TMS, Mike. And that's probably been the biggest thing. That's your engineer. That's your enterprise. That's where your company lives, right? So having a good one is very important. Being able to be nimble within that in a growing company is very important. I could talk about TMSs all day. What our TMS selection allowed us to do is, we don't have a billing person. We don't have a payroll person here anymore. We're talking about controlling costs, cutting costs. Our TMS streamlined a lot of things. Dispatchers and CSRs here at Shefland Trucking can come in day one and do billing from start to finish. For a small carrier, I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of fun. And I'm here to tell other small carriers, if, those 5 to 20 truck fleets, if you don't have something there in a TMS or a management software, you should really look at it. I know technology scares some of us out here, especially in the smaller segment. We're afraid of it, but it's going to be life-changing for your company. I promise you. You got to invest in it.
The 5 to 20 truck fleet is a difficult subject matter in the TMS topic. So
yes, sir.
So Tim, do you want to take that one next?
Yeah, happy to. There's several things that I don't know that economy or troubling times have really slowed us down at all in terms of taking a look at what's going to benefit the organization over the long haul. We made a very large investment this year, moving from one communication system to another within our trucks to help our drivers be quite a bit more efficient, make their lives a bit easier, and at the same time accomplish the same things we need to do from the in-house perspective. TMS is, since everyone's using those 3 letters, I might as well say the same. Something we have been evaluating, and I think are pretty close to the end on making a final decision on changing from one platform to another. I don't know that will happen this year, but I foresee that in 2025. And again, in the same vein, Nik kind of offers a good point. Is streamlining all these job duties and different things that need to get done during the course of the day, especially for us as smaller carriers. We have to do more with less. And in order to do that, you need an overall system that's going to complement the way that your operations run, the way that you do things, as opposed to carrier X, Y, or Z. So I think that's a pretty important thing. Even some simple things that we typically haven't done a whole lot in the world of sales software. We actually did add some sales software to help with leads and find those different opportunities that are out there. That's something that's brand new for us this year, and something that at least is pointing us in the right direction and getting us to the people that we want to speak with and need to know. And on the Power BI side of things, we just literally last week had meeting with our local university, and we have a couple of processes that we do that involve bonus programs for our drivers that are very manually intensive. And so we've hired on an intern to help us be a little smarter about how we handle and how much time we have to spend manipulating and putting data in different places so that we can execute some of those programs as well. So the short answer was yes, Nate.
No, I don't think we know how to do a short answer. So that's not likely, but no, that's great. And the fact, that the CRM is interesting evolution. 15 years ago, CRMs only existed at very large logistics organizations or trucking company is very large, logistics side, medium market, mid market, and above. They're starting to show up everywhere now. I think the CRM is a real thing at all sizes of organizations, especially, maybe not at the very small entities, but they certainly are starting to show up more and more. And that's probably because there's a lot of different solutions, but that workflow that comes with them and just being able to categorize and monitor who you're speaking with. And, it comes back to that relationship management that you guys were talking about. And I'm big on relationships, as you guys know. It kind of is the core of my being. It's managing those relationships, and whether you're using Excel, Microsoft, or Salesforce, having that tool that helps you manage that relationship that says, hey, 6 years ago, I talked to this person and we talked about this. So somewhere down the road, you had that conversation. That is extremely valuable. Even though it was 6 years ago, it might've been 3 years ago or 2 years ago, but it's hard to keep track of all of that. So the CRM is a extremely valuable tool, especially with how many people you're touching on a daily basis these days. Why don't we take our break? And when we come back from break, I'm going to have you guys do a little more depth on describing your operations a little bit more, so everyone kind of understands the differences of your businesses from each other. So Jeremy, if you can take us to that break room. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise. And we're back. If you guys have if anybody watching has any questions for the panel, feel free to shoot them in. We'd be happy to take them at this point. So send them in. We had a little cheer from Mike's wife out there so earlier, but yeah, definitely send in questions. We're happy to field them. So Nik, can you give us a little 1 minute review on your business operations and give us an idea on kind of how you operate?
Yeah, I might be able to do it a little faster, hopefully here. I started out with the beginning of this. We're a 30 truck dry van fleet out here in Western Wisconsin. We specialize, like I said, a lot of dry van freight, driver assist work. We do some LTL and partials within that. We have a small warehousing operation, small brokerage, lots of things to leverage here, right? Outside of that, we have about 3 people in our operations team in terms of dispatch, ops manager, people like that. We have a lot of our services that we require: safety, payroll, HR. Those are outsourced here. It's another lever as a small company that we pull right now. We already wear a lot of hats here, so we don't need full-time everything here. That's us in a nutshell. Small carrier came, last few years came from about 8 trucks up to 30 here, and we're just out here making a name for ourselves today. And
Great. No, thanks for that. And outsourcing, are you outsourcing to local companies, or are you outsourcing offshore, or how are you offshore?
I would say more the bigger national brands for that stuff. No offshore at this point.
Okay.
On the safety side, it'd be more local, just because you need those touches in there, meetings, etc. Right? So.
Yep. Sounds good. And Truck Stop, thanks for watching today. We appreciate it. So, Mike, do you want to give us a quick review on your operations too?
Yeah. I feel like I'm perfectly sandwiched between Nik and Tim here. We're at one point in time, we started in 1961. So Tim, you got a year on us. Right now we're running 10 trucks, so we're very much sized towards Nik. We were an LTL company. My grandpa started the company hauling livestock to the cattle yards. He'd wash his trailer out and haul freight back. And at some point in time, the demand for freight kind of outgrew the demand for hauling cattle. And he certainly liked hauling freight more than he liked hauling cattle. So with that said, we moved into freight. We were a small regional LTL carrier that also had a warehouse, that also had a brokerage, that also had some truckload side to it in the mid 80s. We've been really good at not marketing ourselves well on kind of all the things we do. And so when we restructured and retooled, what that's lent us to do is really focus on our core relationships, our core clients, and really we're like a Lincoln log set to them. So we basically go to them and say, tell us exactly what you need. And then we custom mold our operation to their operations. So a lot of the work we do is working with manufacturers and production plants and tooling our business directly to their supply chain needs. And from all things consolidation, warehouse and ship in just in time to, just doing straight vendor pickup and bringing into them.
Great. Appreciate that overview, Mike. That's I've always known you're kind of into everything. So, Tim, you've kind of described to some extent more than the other two up to this point. So, just a quick iteration on what you guys do. I know drive-in.
Yeah. We're 100% drive-in fleet. This is definitely a family-owned business. I am not a part of the family, but there's the original owner passed in 2007, and things were handed off then to his daughter, Sherry. And my job and function has been helping to see that throughput from second generation to third generation. So definitely a family-owned and operated business, and proud to be a part of it.
Great. Appreciate that. So moving on to some more generalized questions, and this can be more of a debate between the three of you if you wish, or it can be a one-on-one answer. But what's your thoughts on the short-term and long-term outlook for the trucking industry? And we can start kind of opening this one, but I'll first hand this to you, Tim. Thoughts on short-term and long-term outlook for the trucking industry?
Well, I think very much short-term and maybe through about next March. Not a whole lot changes until the election's done with and we've got some direction. I think as we see every 4 years, there's a general sense of jitter that happens, and the economy kind of stalls out in wait to see what's going to take place next. So I'm not too hopeful for the short term that things are going to change a whole lot. Frankly, I hope they just don't get any worse. At this point, I feel like we're still seeing some decrease in rates where at this point it's getting to the point of ridiculous. We're almost reaching those levels of 2008 with the big crash, I think, and if that's where we're headed, I'm hoping it's short-lived.
I agree, and we have a few things coming up here that are a little scary, and hopefully they don't have substantial impact to the supply chain. So But next week will be telling, and we'll see what happens. Does someone else want to take that question or piggyback on what Tim just said?
I guess I have a prediction here. I guess if we're talking about just the van marketplace and general freight marketplace flipping here, when that's going to happen, when do we have to stop worrying for a minute here? I think it's going to be this time next year, honestly. It is going to be another year. Election or no election, I just think that's reality right now. I might be unpopular for saying that, but you gotta be prepared, right?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a flip that happens, to be honest with you. I think it's a gradual change that happens. So, but yeah, it takes time. Mike, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Well, this is going to be a little crude and a little blunt, but it's got to suck before it gets better, right? Yeah. I think we've, Nik, Tim, we've lived through 2008. We were all involved in trucking when that happened. That really sucked, and this season to me is eerily familiar of that. And I think, the advice that I would have to anyone on this call, I know that these guys are going to be doing the same thing. Nate, you've said it over and over, is focus on those who invest in you. You invest in those who invest in you. I think that really drives those relationships forward. I think that will be the difference maker and the key to survival in a really sharp downturn.
And that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is, what advice would you give to other small trucking companies or owner operators that are trying to navigate this current recession? So let's start with Nik on that one.
Yeah, sure. One of my biggest things here is you got to network. Relationships matter. I don't care how big or small you are. Put yourself out there. I was nervous as heck to come on this deal today. That's the first time I've done something like this, and put myself out here today. Try to be different. Try to be different. Get out there. Those are things you can control right now in this moment. Go have coffee with those people. Network. I network with my competition. We share ideas. Misery loves company, but at least we can bounce some things off each other and help one another out. I think at the smaller level, get out there. Things like this podcast are free to you to come check out and be a part of for an hour a week. Those little things matter. Do them.
Yep. Tim, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I really not that I don't want to piggyback on Nik's comments, but there's a lot of value in your state associations and national associations in terms of education and building those relationships that Nik was talking about. I think in the good times and again the bad times, that those things are invaluable because you have people and resources and things that you can draw on to help get you through those times. I think if you're talking about an owner operator or a small fleet, we talked about knowing your costs. You've got to know what those are, know what you can and can't do. I recommend that you keep a tight freight network. Keep your volumes where they make sense, and that will serve you well. And again, in good and bad times, focus on hours of service, utilizing as much as you can of that time, that drive time, and fuel's come down quite a bit. We're not talking about it a whole bunch, but it can spike as quickly as it comes down. It's a cost that's instant. It's a debt that you have to pay almost instantly. Keep an eye on your fuel costs.
Mike.
Yeah, I really like that Tim said the fuel piece. Fuel is kind of one of those things where if your customers don't pay you in 45 to 60, you're paying your fuel bill. A lot of times, if you're an owner op, maybe when you swipe your card at the pump, otherwise you're paying within 10 days. So that's when you're talking about $1,800 every time you fill up, that really does a number on your cash flow. So especially if your clients are paying you slow or late, I'm going to echo the sentiment of focusing on your relationships. The one thing is that I will also say is resist the urge to make all your money back in a few transactions. This I think we've seen the highest highs as far as trucking and the lowest lows within 4 years. One of the things that's helped us is we've tried to flatline our rates in accordance with our expenses. And that's allowed us to really be smart in the marketplace. And it's really allowed us to bring value to our customers. Specifically, when rates were high, we were able to help them. And now when rates are low, we're able to say, hey, it's your turn to help us. And it really helps in the relationship front. So my advice would be resist the urge to play the rate game. Shippers don't forget when you charged them $4 a mile on a lane that used to be $2 a mile. That's something they'll never forget. Just like carriers will never forget the broker that offered them 95 cents a mile to go from here to there.
No, that's true. And that's largely why, that spot market is wonderful when it's hot, but in my opinion, it's not hot as often as it's cold. And when it's medium, you might as well be in contract rate. So
I'll just say to that, Nate, like, I'm happy for the rest of my life here if I just got a really steady rate base,
right.
Rather than riding the swings. It helps with managing costs so much more.
No, agreed. So we're going to shift gears here for a few minutes as we start to kind of wrap up. I appreciate all the insight, and certainly if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to shoot them in still. But we're going to kind of go off path a little bit and talk about a few other things. So, and I like doing these on panels because we get different answers, and sometimes the energy off the panel. We had a panel a while ago that had some interesting thing. So one of my favorite questions to ask panels is, if you guys could create a trucking industry mascot, what would it look like and what would its name be? So that's kind of a tough one to put you on the spot with. But McDonough, I'm going with you because you're going to be the most likely to come off the top of your head with something, and then I'll go to the next guy. So that gives them something to think about. So
it's like I worked for you at one point in time, Nate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there might be something like that.
Yeah. I would say that mascot would be Arthur Fonzarelli. No doubt about it.
Hey.
Just able to withstand the ups, the downs, super cool about it. It's amazing for as volatile as the trucking industry is, everyone still has their stuff. Grocery markets are full of stuff. Things always show up. We might begrudgingly mumble things under our breath as we're delivering loads, complaining about rates. But I do think that there's like this core competence in trucking where we have this duty to get the job done. And for me, like, there's just kind of this coolness about trucking companies, about truck drivers, that for me, that just embodies Arthur Fonzarelli.
Either you guys, Nick or Tim, you guys have a thought there?
I'm going to go with Tigger, like a Tigger character, just because maybe this is how I wish the industry was. We're required to bounce all over the place. I just wish it was easier to do it with a smile on and the gusto that Tigger does it in. And maybe that's something I should try to aspire to be. I don't know.
Fair enough. And Tim, you have a thought?
I think the very best that I could do with this particular question is it's got to be Captain America, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's good times or bad times, how much the chips are down or how much they're up. Trucking delivers, and we do it good and bad times, and we do it thankfully and with frankly the salt of the earth, powering the country.
So do we put all three together and trademark that?
There you go.
And what do we call it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, you said you had Chat GPT up earlier, so throw that together and see what it comes up with. So
Might have lied about that.
yeah, there's gotta be something.
I'll see what we can come up with in that melting pot.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll see what we come up with there. So, those are all great answers. So I came up, the first thought that came to my mind was, and I didn't have that pre-planned by any means. I just grabbed it off of one of many questions. But the first thought that came to my mind was actually something along the lines of Captain America. So Tim and I were kind of leaning in the same direction. So as soon as he said Captain America, I said I got to scrap that one, and then I went to Speedy Gonzalez. So because we're all over the place all the time, running like crazy. So, but well, with that, I think we're going to kind of wrap this up. I appreciate your guys' time. Like I said, this always goes really, really fast. I feel like we could have sat there. I only got through 4 or 5 questions. So we could have sat here and talked in depth, and I could have dug into a lot of these questions much deeper. And I really appreciate the time today. Anything in parting that you guys would like to bring up?
I'd like to give some advice to maybe our generation coming up. Looking at Tim's company's website, they seem to do a really good job at fostering the younger generation in trucking and bringing people up through the ranks. And I'm going to tell anybody out there right now that hasn't experienced, maybe an uptick or a downturn or some of these things that we're seeing. You might be going, am I going to have a job tomorrow? What's the future hold for somebody like me? Back to setting yourself apart and being different. Get out there, do the different things. Ask your leaders for more. Try to set yourself apart within your organization today to bring value. Work that Saturday once in a while. Maybe take that on-call shift. You're going to learn a lot doing it, and your team's going to love you for it. And that's a way forward here in these troubling times, I guess.
Appreciate that. Anyone else have anything else? Otherwise, I will wrap this up and look forward to chatting with you all again in the future.
No, I just want to say thanks for having us on. This was really fun. I think I met Tim at an Insight conference years ago in another life. Nick, I don't know that you and I have met, so
you're somebody that we should have met it by this point if we haven't. I was going to say we got to link up here. We're in the same region, so
yeah, absolutely. Thrilled to be on this call. I feel like it was a great group. Nate, thank you for putting this together.
So before we part, let's go and Nick, how can people find you?
Biggest way is LinkedIn. Nik Hovde, Nik Hovde on LinkedIn.
And Mike?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at our company website at McDonoughTruckline.com. Just be careful if you're writing that down. We don't need any work comp claims filed here for writing down that email.
And Tim?
Well, I can be found right here. I'm always right here. No, you can find me on LinkedIn as well, and also at T Chrulski at GarnerTrucking.com.
Great. All right. I appreciate it, everybody. You're welcome to hang out. Looks like we had a last-minute comment come in. Looks like Carl says hi, Mike. So, But all right, appreciate it, everybody. We'll wrap this one up, and we will catch you all on the flip side. So once again, thank you for being on. So in recap of that, I think everyone there really, it comes down to relationships, controlling costs, understanding how to build out those relationships. And if you actually go through Driving Forward's YouTube channel and go through the Tuesday trip section, there's a pretty good how-to on developing customers, developing relationships with and establishing relationships with brokers, understanding how to do all of that, understanding how to control those costs. So as a very small carrier or as an owner operator, I spell that out, how to manage your fuel costs and understanding what fuel costs look like and should be managed if you're billing a fuel surcharge, and understanding what net cost of fuel is. So take a look at that if you get a chance. But relationships are everything. I've been into well over 1,000 trucking companies, and I will say the differentiator between one and another, a successful trucking company and a not successful trucking company, is its sales capability. You can be a trucking company that does not operate well and have an extremely talented sales team and still be profitable. But you cannot be an extremely well-operated trucking company that has no sales and no capability to sell and be operating extremely well. So two huge differentiators there. So next week, we have Chris DeMillo, VP of IT, and Mike McDonough, Executive Vice President of Operations, on from Leonard's Express. We'll be chatting about their story and the Leonard's Express story. I was able to spend a bit of time with them in the not so distant past, and thought it would be great to chat with them during an episode. I think you'll like their story. I'm going to be spending some time with them here soon. I actually got to spend some time with Chris in Las Vegas. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure he didn't catch what I caught. So coming up soon, we have Broker Carrier Summit. Broker Carrier Summit is October 23rd through 25th in Fort Worth, Texas. BrokerCarrierSummit.com. At the Broker Carrier Summit, we're on a mission to transform the relationship between carriers and brokers. Say goodbye to distrust and hello to mutually beneficial partnerships. We believe the key to this transformation lies in fostering open communication, enhancing education, and meaningful connections. GLCS and Freight Movement will be at FreightWaves F3. We have an event that we're running there. More to come on this. We're excited to chat with everyone. We just announced many partnerships with Broker Carrier Summit, with Manifest, and with TMSA. If you happen to be going to Manifest, please book, and you haven't booked your ticket, please book a ticket using the Freight Movement discount code, manifestvegas.com/freight, FR8MVMT. We'll put that up in a few spots here shortly and probably announce it out, but we'd absolutely love it if you book it through our discount code. That would be much appreciated. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please let us know. Reach out via Messenger or email us at drivingforward@glcs.net. And that should do it. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.